All right. What we've all been taught today is that when the moon is hidden and then a little tiny sliver pops out, that is the new moon. Okay. And then later on in the middle of the month, you have the full moon, which I've shown in my last video that the Bible says that the full moon is the new moon. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that there's a new moon at a sliver of the moon or when the moon is partial. Nothing like that. It only talks about the full moon being the new moon in the Bible. That's all you can find. The idea that the sliver moon is the new moon is from modern Judaism. And modern Judaism doesn't follow the Torah. Some claim to, but they mix in the Talmud and the Kabbalah and traditions of men that they just make up. And that's where this is from. It's not from the Bible. Okay. Now, when they were told to kill the Passover lamb, which would have been Jesus, right? It would have been 14 days after the new moon. That's how it works. Now, if they started from a full moon as the new moon and did a 14-day count, when Christ was crucified, the moon would have been in the hidden state. The state that they say today would have been the new moon. That's what they tell us. See, it's backwards. But regardless, let me finish my point. So if they would have started from the full moon and counted 14 days, that would have made the full moon the new moon. And then when Christ was crucified, 14 days later, on Passover, the moon would have been hidden. Now, let me tell you why this makes the most sense. Because from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, in the middle of the day, it says that there was darkness across all the land. From the 6th hour to the 9th hour. Now, the only time that there is darkness in the middle of the day is a solar eclipse. And a solar eclipse happens when the moon is hidden, not full. When the moon is hidden and it goes in front of the sun, it causes darkness in the middle of the day. Now, the only issue is that there was 3 hours of darkness, because a solar eclipse only lasts a few minutes. Now, I would say this. What I see is that God stopped the sun and the moon while there was an eclipse for 3 hours. Just like in the book of Joshua. And what does Joshua mean? Joshua means Yeshua, Jesus. And in the book of Joshua, Joshua and his men were in battle, stopped the sun and the moon. And I see that connection with Jesus. Well, the moon and the sun were in eclipse. God stopped them for 3 hours. I just wanted to bring up this point on how it makes the most sense that when Christ was crucified and darkness came on the earth for 3 hours in the middle of the day, that definitely sounds exactly like a solar eclipse in which the moon would not have been full, but it would have been in its hidden state. And if there was a hidden moon at the time of the cross, then it couldn't have been the new moon, because the cross was 14 days after the new moon. No solar eclipse is 3 hours today, but if God stopped the sun and the moon while it was an eclipse, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Connected to the book of Joshua, because Joshua means Yeshua, and that's exactly what God did in the book of Joshua. He stopped the sun and the moon, and it's called Joshua's long day. And I find it interesting that the people who use the crescent moon, just like a sliver moon, as their logo is the Muslims. The Sliver moon is literally called a crescent moon. And the Muslims use the crescent moon as their logo. Interesting connections, these connections between modern day so called Judaism and Muslims.